Hello, and welcome to your brief tutorial on how to perform the small group butterfly model. So this is something I'm very, very passionate about, and I've been getting a lot of questions and asked for requests for support on how to conduct small groups, especially with my new teachers in the new teacher support series. So I thought it would be helpful to go ahead and create a video with a visual. This is something that I've explained verbally to people as a strategy, but I've never actually made a visual. So I think the visual always supports. We all do better when we have something to see, right? So if I have coached you on the butterfly model, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth today and give you specific strategies for success when it comes to performing small groups. All right, so here's what I hear all the time. I am teaching in whole group. It's exhausting. I don't know how to do small groups. It's too challenging. I have this problem, this problem, this problem. My kids won't do it. My kids can't do it. I'm here to tell you that your kids can do it and you can do it. More importantly, you can do it. And I know right now whole group feels easier, but once you have mastered small groups, you will realize that it is not. It is so fatiguing to constantly be in performance mode in whole group. And a lot of times, now this may not be you, but if it is you, let it ring true. A lot of times we do whole group and we are so burnt out that we put our kids on iPads, right? So like you're like, I've been doing whole group 3 days in a row and I am so exhausted. And these kids are not listening. They're not paying attention for a whole group lesson. So I don't know what to do. I'm burnt, right? We get burned and we start feeling like our instruction isn't effective. And the truth is, if you're feeling that way, just know that you're right. You are right. Whole group instruction for 60 minutes a block is not effective. You are not going to get the results that you want. Okay. Small groups is how you get the results that you want. And I'm going to explain to you the butterfly model. This is a very, very successful model. It is inspired by the teach model, but also combined with some experience that has had the butterfly. This is how she was birthed. Okay. So I want you to think of a literacy lesson. We are going to think about this in the mind frame of ELA, and I want us to focus on ELA. Now, this can be applied to math, it can be applied to science. Like this is just a small group model, but I want us to be thinking about ELA. It's easier to put ourselves in this position when we're actually focusing on something we can visualize. So, you are teaching an ELA lesson, and you go to your instructional resource guide for extensions and you find the month that we're working on. Hey, it's February. I'm going to go to February. I'm going to click on ELA, and there you have your pacing guide. It's essentially a slides presentation that has been adapted from a pacing guide. And it is week 2, day 3, and you pull it up on your slideshow and you say, okay, these are the activities. It's a vocabulary day. So the main lesson is the vocabulary lesson. You're reviewing vocabulary or you're introducing vocabulary. So you're doing a vocabulary lesson and there is a story that goes with the vocabulary lesson, right? So you have 2 activities and typically there's a writing activity as well. I don't always include the writing activity in my ELA block. Sometimes I'll pull that into a different block and maybe do it 2 times a week. That's up to you. But you have those activities, right? So you know what you're doing. You already know what you're doing. It's just how do you do it, right? I always start off with a 20-minute whole group. There's a lot of evidence to say that this is a good kind of baseline threshold for our kids. So 20 minutes really cuts it in the middle. Some of our kids cannot focus for 2 minutes, right? Like, but that's why this whole group is so important. Whole group is not always necessarily just there to teach content. It's there to teach pragmatics. How do we sit in a group of our peers? How do we build community? How do we learn to take turns? How do we learn to focus on a speaker? Like these are things that are important skills that we want to foster in our students. So whole group is very important. You don't want to cut whole group out completely. It's great for sense of community. They are part of a class, right? They're not part of a group of 2 students. They're not part of a group of just themselves because they can work independently when they are growing their academic skills, right? Like they're a part of a community and we want to build that community. So whole group is really important. Don't cut it out. Don't kill whole group because you love the butterfly so much. Whole group is a part of the butterfly. Whole group is I don't know, the food that the hungry caterpillar is eating, right? We need it to nourish our little butterfly. So keep whole group, but I like to start off with 20 minutes. So imagine this. 20 minutes, I am teaching to the whole class the vocabulary. Or maybe I'm reading the story to the whole class and we're pointing out the vocabulary as we go. There are lots of things that you can do during that whole group time. So you're doing that activity. Okay. So you've done your whole group, right? And now you're looking to break up into your small groups. And your small groups are going to be in that butterfly model. So let's talk about the thorax first. Let's talk about this center of the butterfly, the body of the butterfly. The thorax of the butterfly is going to be independent work. And I know what instantly happens in our mind. You think of those kids who, quote, can't do anything independently. I'm here to tell you that your kids can do something independently. It's any activity that students can do without adult support. Now, if you have a P&A in your classroom or you have a third TA, hot dog, but this model is based off of the minimum amount of support that you should have in your room and the maximum amount of students. So when you're thinking about this butterfly that I built for you as an example, I built it in what I like to say your worst case scenario. Which is you only have one person in the room and you have the most amount of students in the room. So if you have less students than 12, that's awesome. This should be even more obtainable for you. If you have multiple adults in the room in addition to yourself, okay. I mean, that's fabulous. That's great. Those are additional supports, but I am giving this to you, this model, based on the minimum amount of supports and the maximum amount of students in your classroom. So your students can do something. Some examples might be iPad and Chromebook time, worksheets, choice time. This is a holding space for your students. And I want you to think about the thorax as a holding space. There can be 5 to 10 students in this holding space at any given time, but that's okay because this is independent time. You can put something on the smartboard for them to watch. You can maybe something related to ELA that is you have to be creative and you have to think of what they're doing. But know that some students have to be on the iPad at this time. It's okay. They're engaging in instruction, but just make sure it's related to ELA. Either something that they are personally specifically working on at their level, or it can be reading games. It could be your L3 skills. There are lots of things that you can be working on, or they can be working on independently. Choice time, worksheets, those sorts of things should be done in this section. So think about this as your holding space for your student. Okay, now I want you to think about the wings. We're going to start by talking about the assistant-led wing, and then we're going to move into the teacher-led wing. So the center of the thorax is your independent work, your holding space for your students, 5 to 10 students. Your assistant-led wing is your reteaching and your differentiating of the content that you are learning at that day. Your teacher-led instruction is going to be more IBP progress monitoring. Okay, let's talk about the assisted led wing first. So, when you're thinking about the assistant led wing, you are thinking about reteaching what you just taught in whole group. Now, the great thing about ULS is that when you navigate to that activities tab, like so you go into your slides presentation, you find the activity that you're doing whole group. When you go into ULS and you expand that activity, there are multiple activities. So if it's a vocabulary activity, there are going to probably be 5 to 8 activities that are underneath that, right? So here is how mentally I break up this wing. This is usually an ability grouped wing. So you have your advanced, your mainstream, and your remedial groups. Your advanced group is a group that is going to be pushing past what you just taught, the level you just taught at whole group. Your mainstream group is going to be instructed at the level that you just taught in whole group. And your remedial group are those friends who just got exposed to whole group, but were probably stretching to get there, right? They were stretching to get to that mainstream level. And now we need to break up into that small group and reteach this concept, but break it down a little bit more, scaffold it a little bit more for those kiddos. All right, so you have your advanced, your mainstream, and your remedial. The important thing about the reteaching wing and the differentiating wing is that you are going to have a very specific and strategic plan for your assistant. So a lesson plan for your assistant. They know that when I pull my advanced group, it is this student, this student, this student. I'm going to do this for 10 minutes, right? When I pull my mainstream group, it's going to be this student, this student, this student, this student. That one might be 5 or 4. Your advanced might be smaller, right? I'm going to pull them this group and I'm going to pull them for this amount of time. And then their remedial group, it might be broken up into groups of 2. This can be very different. You know, when you're talking about differentiating, you might have a student in your class who is visually impaired and hearing impaired. You might have a student in your class who has significant behavioral challenges and can only do work one to one, right? This can look very different based off of like your population in your class. But everything that you do at this time, assistant led, and how it is broken up and how it is successful is based on how successful and strong your thorax is. Your independent thorax has to be really, really strong to make this successful. And once that's strong, pulling these groups and staying with fidelity to this reteaching and differentiating wing is going to be even more obtainable for you. So these are small group activities and they're pulled directly from ULS and they're ability grouped. When you make this lesson plan for your teacher's assistant, you want to make sure that you are saying, okay, these advanced kids, you're going to pull them for 10 minutes out of the holding space of the thorax, and you're going to work for those 10 minutes on this activity, right? And then you're going to send them back into the thorax. I like to advise never go from wing to wing. Always go from thorax to wing, back to thorax. It is very important to build processes. We want to build processes and understand that you might need to draw out a butterfly, give it to your student so that they can say, I'm moving from the thorax of my butterfly to Miss Bow's wing. Put your picture view into Miss Bow's wing and go to Miss Bow's wing. If you're working on a simple model like this, giving them a butterfly and having them see the visual that you see, that can be extremely helpful, right? I'm taking my picture out of, or my Paw Patrol dog, whatever it is, out of the thorax, and I'm going to the reteaching and differentiating, or whoever that teacher is, wing, right? That can be very, very helpful with this model. That's why the model's simple, right? It's simple for all of us. So keeping that in mind, she knows what she's doing and how long she's doing it with advance, what she's doing, who she's polling, how long she's doing it for mainstream. She knows the order that she's doing it. She knows the ideal, right? And she understands that she needs to be very clear with her language and she needs to say, I need you, you, and you to come to my wing and we are going to work on this. And she facilitates that transition. It's very clear. Thank you for working on this with me, you, and you. I need you to go back to the thorax and restart your independent activity. Go back to your iPad, go back to your choice time, whatever it is. So you are guiding them to and from the thorax, completing the activity. Those are your roles when it comes to this butterfly, making her successful. So that's the assistant-led wing. And now we're going to talk about the teacher-led wing. The teacher-led wing. That is going to be really focusing on individual skills. So IEP progress monitoring, you're going to be focusing on teaching the IEP skills. And you are going to be focusing on groups that are 1 to 3 students. So while the reteaching and differentiating group is probably bigger, more students, and obviously the independent, the thorax is going to be bigger, your group is probably going to be the smallest. And when you're breaking up these groups of 1 to 3 students, you are focusing on, if you have more students in the group, like the 3 students, they need to have shared goals. So goals in common. Maybe let's just say for purposes of ELA, they are working on identifying key details in a text. So that's just a hypothetical. That's a goal I see a lot. Identifying key details in a text. Okay, you can pull 3 students for that. If you're teaching it and identifying the who or the what, or if you're identifying setting or key events, those types of things. You can pull those 3 students. If you're working on sequencing a story, and you have 2 students who have that goal, you can pull those 2 students and you can progress monitor and you can teach those skills in that small group, right? But think of the teacher led as something that is a little bit more fluid and flexible. The assistant led group is very stringent. It has a lesson plan. It has specific activities. You have laid it out for your teacher's assistant very clearly, and that is going to be what it is. Yours is a little bit more flexible. It could be checkpoints, it could be benchmarks. You could be pulling 1 student, right? Sometimes our kids need 1 to 1, and a lot of times our teachers, or I'm sorry, our students need 1 to 1 support when they're gaining new skills. And then especially when we're progress monitoring, right? Your goal is going to be 2 data collection points per goal per week. So if I have an IEP goal of identifying key details in a text for a student, I want to be taking data on that at least 2 times per week, right? So this is going to give you that opportunity to do it. You may not be taking data in every session. That's normal, right? You might not be taking data in every session. You only need it twice a week. Any more is great, but you only need it twice a week. So those other blocks can be spent teaching the skill. We're reading a story. We're identifying the who in the story. When you hear the who, I want you to raise your hand, or when you hear the who, I want you to tap the table. And I'm reading the story and I'm pausing when I get to the character. Say, did you hear the who? Did you hear the who in the story? Did anyone hear Clifford's name in the story? Let me hear you tapping on the desk, tap on the desk. Hold up your picture, whatever it is, tap on the character. You have a picture of Clifford in front of you. I want you to touch Clifford when you see Clifford. These are just examples. I know I'm very elementary school teacher, but these are examples, right? You're teaching the skill of identifying the who in the story so that when you go to take data on that goal, they have the skill. They know what a who is. They know how to identify it. You've taught them on a communication to identify it. I touch the voice output device when I hear the character in the story or see the character and stuff. You're teaching the skill. And but you're also taking this time to collect data on that skill, making sure that we are collecting the IEP data to show progress, so progress monitoring, but also teaching those specific skills. Now, you may not be pulling every kid every day, right? You're not necessarily pulling every kid into your wing every day, but that's why you have a strong thorax because you know that there in the thorax, the entire block of small group is, well, first of all, you do 60 minutes, right? You're doing 20 minutes a whole group. So that brings you back down to 40 minutes. The whole thing is only 40 minutes. The whole thing is only about 40 minutes. So at most, they're probably spending 30 minutes of independent time in thorax. That's if you don't pull them at all. Now you're going to pull them most of the time, right? You're going to be working with your kids most of the time in your wing, but they might not be pulled that day, but that's okay because they have a strong thorax and they know at some point your teacher's assistant is going to be pulling them for that differentiated instruction. So that means that maybe once a week they're spending 30 minutes in that thorax and they're spending that additional 10 minutes with your teacher assistant in their wing. Okay. But most of the time, you're probably going to see what this looks like for a student from a student perspective, because I always like to think of it from the student perspective. I just did whole group. I was with my community. I had community time. And now I'm going to be independent. I'm going to go do the thorax. They know they're always going from whole group to thorax. Like I said, always go to thorax. Never go from wing to wing. Never go from whole group to wing. No. Transitions are so important to teach. You go from whole group to thorax, thorax to wing to thorax to wing. It's very important. Thorax is the home base. Independence is the core. You want to be going back to home base, back to that thorax. Okay, so I go from whole group, I go to thorax. I start my independent activity. I might do this. They know this internally. I'm going to do this for a little bit. I'm going to get started. And then either Miss Bo is going to pull me to the teacher wing or Miss So-and-so is going to pull me to the reteaching wing, right? Either way, they know something's coming. They know something's coming. They don't know how much, they don't know when. That's okay. What's important is that their core, their backbone, their holding space is strong, and they understand that this is a time for holding space, and I'm going to pull you for additional things outside of your holding space. So for them, this session is driven by their independent study. Okay. I hope that that was helpful. I know that it's a lot. I hope you can visualize it. I hope you are starting to visualize what this looks like in your classroom. Trust me, give it a shot. I know it's scary to try new things. I know that we get into patterns with our students. Our students get into patterns too, and we're worried about disrupting something. But this is something that's worth it, I promise you. This is truly worth the investment of teaching new processes because this is how we can be most effective. Small groups are an evidence-based practice. Independent work is an evidence-based practice. You're talking about best practices for our students. We want them to grow. And if you are feeling fatigued by doing whole group every single day for every single session, and you are feeling like you are breaking your back teaching, that you're teaching to no one because that's what I hear. I'm like, I look out and they're having behaviors and they're screaming and they're picking their nose until it bleeds and they're just not paying attention to me. They might not be. And that might mean that whole group is not great for your kids, but you still have to do it because we're teaching that skill, right? Independent might be hard for some of your students, but they still have to do it because we're teaching that skill. And eventually it's going to get easier. And eventually they're going to be able to do these different things. And it takes time, it takes teaching, it takes explicit instruction, but I promise you it's worth it. You are going to see growth. This is the way that we grow our students. And we have the data to support it. So you're making sure that everything you're doing in these sessions, you're taking data. If a student was struggling with independent work and they were having to come sit next to you during every single session of your progress monitoring with other students with their little headphones on and their little iPad next to you, and you're just giving them positive reinforcement and they have not done independent successfully, but hey, it's been 2 weeks and now he understands that he's sitting a little bit further away from me and he's facing me, but and he can see me and I'm giving him thumbs up, but he's doing more independent work. And maybe for that student, he's blowing his activities out of the water. He has 100% accuracy, but his is behavior driven and he cannot work independently yet. Okay, well, at the end of this, you're going to have data that says because of the thorax, we were building skills to make his backbone stronger, his independence stronger, and I have data to support that we've done it. I hope this makes sense for you. If you need additional support with this, I am very passionate about meeting with you and discussing why this won't work in your room because I love that. I love to hear why this won't work. I've seen this work so well, and I've done it with the most challenging groups of students that you can possibly imagine. I've seen it really work. So I want to hear why it won't work for you, and I want to work with you to make it work in your classroom. So you saw my name at the beginning of this recording. It's Kristen Bogiadis, you know me as Bo. You reach out to me, you email me, we can set up a virtual time to just kind of discuss why it doesn't work, how we can get it to work in your room. I would love to work with you on this. And you can always reach out to your extensions program, ECCT, so your EP ECCT. They want to support you in this as well. Let's make this a goal. We are going to be doing small group in our classrooms because it is best practice. And I hope you found this helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and learn this with me. And I hope you have a wonderful day and best wishes to you.